Hey, I'm Doug Wilkes with Southern Visions Real Estate. After buying and selling several investment properties over the last couple of years, I decided to join Southern Visions because it's a multifaceted real estate firm that helps with residential, commercial, and land development. Today we're going to sit down with the owner and broker in charge, Robby Wilkins, and talk about the business he spent the last 40 years building here in Lexington County. All right, here with Robby Wilkins, owner and broker in charge of Southern Visions Real Estate, and just wanted to ask him a few questions about how he got started in the business.
So it's pretty simple. I was actually semi-born into the business. My family moved to Lexington in 1967. We had a 300-acre farm, mainly raised beef cattle. Back then, Lexington was lots of dirt roads, one stoplight, and one very small school that we all went to. During the early 70s, that started growing, and my father did our first development called Rose Lake, which is an executive subdivision on Old Chapin. It was part of our family farm. I went to law school, came back, and after practicing law with my father for about 10 years, found that I enjoyed the real estate development side of it a lot more. So in the early 80s, I was a full-time real estate developer. We probably had 5 or 6 neighborhoods going every year. You would be familiar with most of them if you've been in Lexington: Carriage Hill Lakes, Ashley Oaks, Summer Lake, Spence Plantation, a long list. Over my 40-year career, we've developed more than 3,000 lots. We currently have about 800 lots in the pipeline. So Lexington has been very busy, very good to us.
Can you explain to us the work outside of Lexington that you are currently involved with or have done?
Yes, well, we own a fair amount of property in Florence, South Carolina, so we've always had development projects over there. About 20 years ago, I started developing Dollar Generals. And those Dollar Generals, we traveled and were in 5 different states. And while we were in those states, we picked up other kind of jobs. A good, for example, is in Richmond Hills, Georgia right now. We have a 560-acre development for residential, anchored by a hospital.
Can you talk about partnering with landowners to help with the development process?
We started working with landowners because a lot of landowners want to maximize their profit. The majority of our deals done in the past, and if you're from Lexington, you would recognize the families: Kaufman, Spence's, Harmon's, all the major landowners around here. We would go to them, they would put their real estate in a deal, and we would match the value of the real estate with cash. So there would be no mortgage put on the piece of property. The landowner would be a 50% owner of the project, and we would be a 50% owner. From Spence Plantation to Carriage Hill Lakes to a lot of neighborhoods that you're familiar with in Lexington, that's how those projects were developed. It's a little harder to do that today because of how much it costs to put the infrastructure in. So we have hybrid type deals. We're doing 2 lake projects right now where we represent the families. We do all of the infrastructure work, but the families pay all the bills and we just charge a development fee. The families are pretty comfortable because we're doing liquid assets, lots on Lake Murray, and we've been doing this for 40 years. So we got a great track record, and the bottom line to them is they're maximizing their profits.
Robby, can you tell us about your career in commercial real estate?
Yeah, this is a funny one. So my father was always a serial entrepreneur. And in the early 70s, he bought the intersection of Highway 6 and Platte Springs Road. Today, that's anchored by a Walmart and a Lowe's. As a kid, that was a flea market, and I sold snow cones there through we had 3 concession stands and sold snow cones. Now it's McDonald's, you name it, all the users are there, and that sort of got us into the commercial business. That started my Dollar General career. The very first Dollar General we built was out in front of the Walmart on Platte Springs Road. Today we do the same thing for families. We're representing a very large family on the west side of town that will do a hospital-anchored commercial center and potentially a major retailer like Walmart on another tract. So we use the same concepts. In the commercial world, because the properties sell for a lot more money, a lot of times the families just sell, take the money, pay a capital gain, and move on. I would say 50% of our business today is commercial and 50% is residential.
And can you talk about the amphitheater and the surrounding area that you helped rejuvenate in downtown Lexington?
Yeah, growing up in Lexington, you always want to do a signature project in your hometown. About 5 years ago, the town of Lexington put out a bid for commercial building in the parking lot of the amphitheater. We turned in our commercial building project with Craig Otto, an architect, Eric Bland, a lawyer, and myself as the developer. And we ended up building a 10,000 square foot building there in the parking lot, anchored by Barrios, tacos and whiskey, I believe is what it's called. Very, very successful restaurant. When you're driving into Lexington, you'll see the building. It's a great example of modern, rejuvenating downtown Lexington.
In the early part of your career, what did you do in practicing law, and how has that helped you in your real estate career?
Well, again, you keep hearing me talk about my father. I was very blessed. He was the #1 estate planning lawyer in South Carolina and maybe in the country. So when I got out of law school, I went into the estate planning business with my father. It helps when I deal with families because I understand all the tax consequences and estate planning procedures that they should go through. And I don't practice law anymore, but when I meet with a family, they understand that I have the knowledge on the tax side and the estate planning side to put the best model together for where they should go with their real estate planning.
Besides normal brokerage activities, what do you encourage your real estate agents to do?
We're a very different real estate company from the national companies that you're typically familiar with. I encourage all of my real estate agents to be principals in a deal. Gregory, my son, who works for me, we've built 39 unit affordable housing projects. We've done all kinds of things where he's in the deal. I would say I do 2 to 3 deals a year with my agents, and it's just training them to follow in my footsteps and being good developers in and around the town of Lexington.
When you're working with a landowner and they have some serious concerns about traffic or, environmental concerns for what could happen to Lexington when they develop their property, how do you address those?
All landowners have concerns. Most of these landowners have had these tracts in their families for generations, and just like my family. But Lexington has changed. We have traffic, it's not going away. We have regulations that make development much tougher than they were 20 years ago. They will only get tougher in the future. That actually has an impact on land value, because the tougher the regs are, sometimes it reduces the value of land. It's all driven, though, by the school district. People are coming to Lexington because we have one of the top school districts in the state of South Carolina. Growth is not going away. Traffic is not going away. Regulations aren't going away. Those are just things that you need somebody very skilled at who can navigate that entire process.
Speaking of regulations, what should someone know when purchasing a lot on Lake Murray to build their dream house?
Number one, we just got what's called the Lake Murray Overlay District. That was put in place by council about a year ago. If you're in a planned subdivision greater than 9 lots, there's a pretty onerous buffering restriction that's in place. Septic tanks are getting harder and harder to get approved. Most places on the lake do not have sewer. The 100-foot minimum width of a lot that allows you to get a dock is a tough thing because we're ending up with pieces that are harder to develop, and they go have wetlands, environmentally sensitive areas on them, all kinds of other rules and regs that just make it harder. So you've got to have a skilled agent take you through the process to get you on the right lot.